Hello everyone, and welcome back to our weekly video series, Saints Marching. And in this video series, as we know, we learn about a different saint of the week each week. We're focusing in a particular way on some of our lesser known saints in the hope that our knowledge of the saints will continue to grow. Our Saints Marching saint of the week this week is Saint Isidore of Seville. His memorial is April 4th. As it happens, this doesn't always happen, but today I'm recording this is April 4th. And he was born sometime in the mid-6th century, date of birth not exactly known, and his death was in the year 636. So he crossed over the change of century from the 6th to the 7th century. Saint Isidore was literally born into a family of saints in this time in Spain. Two of his brothers, Leander and Fulgentius, and one of his sisters, Florentina, are revered as saints in Spain. It was also a family of leaders and strong minds, with Leander and Fulgentius serving as bishops and Florentina as an abbess of a female monastery. Now, the older brother, Leander, may have been holy in many ways, but the stories go that his treatment of his little brother Isidore shocked many even at that time. Leander, who was much older than Isidore, took over Isidore's education, and his pedagogical theory involved force and punishment. We know from Isidore's later accomplishments that he was intelligent and hardworking, so it is hard to understand why Leander thought that this kind of physical force would work instead of kindness, charity, and patience. In any event, one day the young boy Isidore just could not take it anymore, and frustrated by his inability to learn as fast as Leander wanted him, and hurt also by his brother's overall treatment of him, he ran away. But though he could escape his brother's hand in words, he could not escape his own feeling of failure and rejection. After having run away, he noticed water dripping on a rock near where he was sitting out in the wilderness. The individual drops of water that fell repeatedly were not strong enough individually to do anything to the rock, but they seemed to have, and therefore they seemed to have no immediate effect on solid stone. But as he's reflecting on this, he could see that nonetheless the constant dripping, the multitude of drops falling on the stone, did have an effect on the rock. There were worn holes in pockets and things in the rock over time. So he sees that clearly the water has had an impact on the rock. Now, this gave Isidore sudden insight about himself, and he realized that if he kept working at his studies, his seemingly small efforts would eventually pay off in the great learning, and his hard-as-rock head would finally absorb the learning he's trying to absorb. He also may have hoped that his efforts would also wear down the rock of his brother's heart. So this one incident, observation of the rock, has profoundly impacted him, evidently. In time, Isidore was able to embrace the joy of learning for its own sake and not to impress his brother. And as he had hoped, watching the drops of water falling on that stone, his learning took deep root, and he rose above his past to become one of the greatest teachers in Spain. Later on, so his love of learning made him promote the establishment of a seminary in every diocese in Spain while he was there. This is after he was made Bishop of Seville. He did not limit his own studies and did not want others to do so either. He wanted all kinds of opportunities for people to learn and to grow in knowledge. And so he ensured that all branches of knowledge, including the arts and medicine, were taught in the seminaries. His encyclopedic grasp of knowledge formed a book, what he called the Etymologies. And this encyclopedia of knowledge, the Etymologies, was a popular textbook for 9 centuries after its initial publication. He also wrote books on grammar, astronomy, geography, history, and biographies, and biology, as well as theology. When the Arabs brought the study of Aristotle back to Europe, that's a long and strange history and a story for another time, but Aristotle was brought back to Europe by the Arabs. This was nothing new to Spain because Isidore had already reintroduced a great Greek philosopher, Aristotle, to the students in Spain. As Bishop of Seville, he was bishop for 37 years. He set a model for representative government in Europe, and he helped convert the barbarian Visigoths from Arianism to Christianity. He lived until almost the age of 80. As he was dying, his house was filled with crowds of the poor to whom he was giving aid and alms, even unto his dying day. One of his very last acts in this life was to give all of his possessions to the poor. When he died in the year 636, this future doctor of the church, and St. Isidore of Seville is a doctor of the church, He was also a light of learning. In his light of learning caught fire in Spanish minds, and that intellectual treasure held back the dark ages of barbarism from Spain, though much of the rest of Europe kind of fell into this intellectual collapse. But even greater than his outstanding mind must have been the genius of his heart that allowed him to see beyond rejection and discouragement to joy and possibility. Rejection and discouragement in his own study, in his own attempts to grow in knowledge. But he learned the joy and possibilities of growth and knowledge for his own sake. So all of this makes him a great saint. He's a doctor of the church. Saint Isidore of Seville, pray for us. Thank you very much for joining me. Please join us again next week for our video series as we continue Saints Marching. God bless you all.